lovelies, welcome back to my channel. I have sort of a witchy book haul for you today. Just kind of wanted to hop on here because we made it to the bookstore. Today's Mother's Day. It's May 13th as of this recording. And I'm a huge reader, book buff, whatever you want to call it. I love books, specifically sci-fi and fiction. And I picked up a few books that just kind of piqued my interest browsing around the bookstore and wanting to share them with you and kind of, my thoughts on why I picked them up. The first one, in fact, the first three are young adults. I don't know. I really love the young adult genre, even though the protagonist is, either teenager or younger adult. I still find them very entertaining, and the stories and the plot lines, and there's a lot of really good stories and amazing authors that write young adult genre. I think they're fantastic for adults too, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So I do still have a lot of young adult type books in my library. Most notably Harry Potter. I did grow up with those though, so I didn't read them for the first time as an adult. I was a youth. I think I was 14 the first time that I read the first three books that were out at the time that I discovered the genre, but my mother read them with me, and she fell in love with the series just as much as I did at the time. So I still feel that there is a lot of amazing work in the young adult genre. So the first three that I picked up are from that area. For whatever reason, the new releases in the adult sci-fi and fantasy sections, I wasn't feeling it, so picked up mostly these guys. Now, this one is the second in a series. I do have the first, and it was great. So this is Rick Riordan's Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard. This is book 2. This is the Hammer of Thor. Book 1 is the Sword of Summer, and it's referring to Freyr's sword, which he ends up losing and sort of grabs and kills him with it in Ragnarok. Bummer. But Magnus Chase, not to give too much away, is discovered to be a demigod, much like, the Percy Jackson in the Olympian series, also by Rick Riordan. And so the second one is all about the Norse pantheon, whereas the first series with Percy Jackson was about the Greek pantheon, but still following a half-blooded protagonist. In this case, Magnus Chase. Very interesting name, by the way. And I really enjoyed the first one. I had to pick up this series. My sister loves Percy Jackson and that whole series. I never read them. I saw the movie that came out, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. So I watched it. I thought it was pretty cute, but I didn't really get into it a whole lot. It's kind of weird because my matron deity is Persephone. I don't really know if Persephone is actually in that series. I'll have to ask my sister. Or if you've read it, please let me know in the comments below. Does Persephone make an appearance? I don't know. But I saw this one and immediately was like, it's the Norse pantheon. Freyr's involved. I need to read this book. And I really ended up enjoying it a lot more than I thought I would. And that's why I picked up the second one. The third book is actually out already. It's in hardback, but I just picked up the second one first rather than getting both the second and the third one. And so if you're looking for a new take on old gods, definitely recommend going with any of Rick's stuff. And so the second one that I picked up, and yes, there are 2 books I'm about to share with you with which in the title. That's a coincidence. But this first one here is The Bone Witch, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the author. I'm just going to show you the cover here. And what I found interesting about this one is in reading the back cover, just the premise, the idea that there is, and this is a fantasy, so we've got a young female protagonist, and I tend to be more drawn to books with a female protagonist. I relate to it a lot more. I happen to be female. So the next 2 books that I'm going to share with you have a female lead. And so we do have a young woman here. She's referred to as a bone witch because her specialty is necromancy. And in just reading the back, or even the front cover, she says, "Let me be clear, I never intended to raise my brother from his grave." Woo! So immediately I was like, this one's gonna be interesting. So within this young woman's kingdom, you know, witches who got a specialty of necromancy are referred to as bone witches. And because of their specialty, they're an outcast as far as witches go within her realm. So already there's like this kind of edgy angle to the story. You know, things are probably going to go sideways. Just the fact that she's like, I brought my brother back to life. Shit's going to hit the fan in this book. Right from the get-go. So in those kind of stories, I love. Just to give you an example, I'm a huge fan of Anne Rice, The Vampire Chronicles. Love those books. I do love the Song of Fire and Ice, Game of Thrones series by George R.R. Martin. You guys know who wrote the books. And what else? Simon Green series, From the Other Side. Love those books. So just kind of, you know, any of those stories where immediately you jump in and you're like, this may or may not have a happy ending. Let's go for a ride. Are kind of books that are up my alley. So that's why I grabbed this one, and I will let you guys know how it goes. This third one, so this one's called The Black Witch. Thoughts and feelings on the whole white witch, black witch thing aside, I'm kind of setting that to the side because in reading the dust jacket, it's clear to me that Black Witch is just, you know, a title for a figure of power within this realm, within this story. So my personal feelings about those titles within our modern community, our actual real life community, I'm setting those to the side and suspending those for the duration of this book. Because reading this dust cover, I was like, So I've not read anything from Lori Forrest. I haven't read anything from this author either. But I flipped open the dust jacket, and this is about, again, we've got a young female lead, and her name is Aloran Gardner. And her people are referred to as Gardnerians. If you're a Wiccan, your interest is piqued too. Because I'm sitting here going, okay, how can this author not be Wiccan, or at least know enough of Wicca that she refers to her people as Gardnerians, and her main character is a gardener. For those of you that may not know, the founding father of Wicca is a man named Gerald Gardner, and his tradition is referred to as the Gardnerian tradition that he founded within Wicca. There are many other traditions as well, Alexandrian, Dianic, Fae, etc. But Gardnerian is the one that started it from the actual founder of Wicca. So Lauren is this young woman who really hasn't come into her power yet. She is from a long line of witches or spellcasters, powerful folk, where her grandmother was the last known black witch, and which within this realm is, I take it, is just a very powerful witch. And it sounds like Lauren might be the next one, because the way that the dust jacket reads, she supposedly doesn't have a whole lot of power, even being the granddaughter of this powerful female character. But you kind of have a feeling that throughout the development of this book, something's going to occur and she's going to be able to come into her own. This is definitely reads somewhat of a coming of age tale. So that's kind of what piqued my interest here with this book. But mostly what grabbed my attention is referring to Gardner and Gardnerian. So I'm keeping an open mind in reading this book to see really how many elements from Wicca are being pulled into this, if any at all, or if it's just some random coincidence, or if she just liked the name and decided to reference that only. But either way, I will come back and let you know. But those, were the 3 books that I picked up. And just, by the nature of me being a witch and a Wiccan, I love tales about fantasy, magic, and witchcraft. I think that okay, being completely transparent and honest here, I have a few hang-ups, just personal hang-ups around Wiccans and witches who are very anti-fantasy. I get it if you don't like the genre and it's not interesting to you. Okay, cool. But I've come across a few witches and Wiccans over, the years who have basically said that if you do read and like and enjoy fantasy, then you're an idiot. Because fantasy magic has nothing to do with real magic and detracts from that. And for that reason, a lot of these individuals refuse to let books like Harry Potter into their home and have their children read it. I'm of the mind, because I am raising my kids in witchcraft and they're growing up reading Harry Potter, my kids are smart enough to differentiate, even at 6 and 7, to differentiate between actual energy spell work that they're doing to banish nightmares or pull in friends that they're meant to have friendships with to them, whatever have you, versus waving a wand and saying Wingardium Leviosa and having a feather levitate in Harry Potter. They know that this realm is fiction and that what they're doing here in the real world, that magic, has real world application and impact. They can differentiate between the two. And I feel that if you're saying that people can't, that's really kind of shitty. To be perfectly honest with you. How dumb do you think the general population is that we can't tell these two apart, that we can't separate these two, still practice one, and enjoy reading about the other. So that's just kind of my take on it. If that sounds harsh in any way, I don't mean for it to be, but that is my honest opinion as far as that goes. I feel that anyone and everyone can enjoy fantasy if they choose to. I mean, if it's just not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. But I don't think bashing it within the witchcraft and Wiccan communities is cool. People can separate the two, absolutely. So I enjoy them, and I bought them, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun reading them. And then, bottom line, and then the other two that I picked up, I picked up Tales of Norse Mythology. Now I do have the Icelandic sagas, not the Prose Edda, completely different, but the actual Icelandic sagas of the Icelanders, on my bookshelf. Love them. Now, this isn't a book that I'm going to sit and read through in one sitting. This is going to be something that I will probably refer back to, read in chunks. I do have the Iliad and the Odyssey, Homer's works, and the Black Cabinet actually behind me. And I do continue to pull them out on occasion. I love mythology. I love ancient mythology. I love modern day take on mythology, modern day mythology. Just love reading in general. I love stories. I love good stories, regardless of when they were written. And so this one pulls from the sagas and also from the Prose Edda, and just kind of, in a compilation, writes out the myths in modern day terminology that we can understand. So I definitely wanted to pick this up. The second one that I picked up, similar, is A Treasury of Irish Fairy and Folk Tales. So this one is an anthology, and really it's a collection. When I was younger, reading about Edain, her story, and the fairy King Medea, and being transformed into a butterfly, and going through all of the heartbreak that she went through, was just very interesting to me. It grabbed my attention when I was a teenager, and really just Irish fairy tales in general are interesting. These are not your happy-go-lucky fairies. I mean, Puka and Banshee, the she are interesting folk. Very interesting folk. And considering the fact that I do work closely with the Fae, they were the first astral beings that I ever made contact with and ever began working with when I started working down this path, or walking this path. Fairy tales in general hold a special place in my heart, so I kind of try and grab as many compilations as I can. I do have some other anthologies of Celtic poetry specifically, and prayer and song, on my bookshelf. I do have some other Irish tales, books on Celtic deities, books on the I believe it's 7 invasions of Ireland. No, not 7. Is it 7? How have I forgotten how many? Lord, forgive me. Watch, it's like 4. Hold on. There were a few. There were a few. Five waves of invasion. Um, and talking about the Furbolg and the Tuatha De Danann, I clearly need to brush up on a couple of those books because instead of five, I thought it was seven. But I really enjoy those tales. And it's not something, again, like I said, that I sit through and read in one night. But it's something I'll probably keep one of these books on my nightstand and take a few months to just kind of read one story or legend at a time and go through that. I like to read these ahead of time before I read them to my kids because if there's like a lot of gore and bloodshed, I like to prepare my kiddos before diving into that. They are 6 and 7. I feel like I give them a lot of credit and, am able to explain certain things to them that they can absorb and understand as far as like, television, for example. Okay, honey, that person's not really bleeding. They're an actor. They're telling a story that is corn syrup. This is all for entertainment purposes. And they're like, okay, that's great. But when I'm actually reading about something in history that did actually occur, and I'm like, yeah, this person severed this person's head, this is a really big impact on saying that to a 6 and 7-year-old. So, I like to be prepared. And Ireland has a pretty bloody history. So that may be, a book that I save for when the kids are a bit older. Not that I'm trying to hide anything from them, but I would like them to stay kids for a bit longer. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that kind of mom. Anyway, so those I picked up as well. Really like any historical, mythological anthologies. If you guys have any suggestions for really any books that pique your interest, please let me know in the comments below. If you've read any of these books, let me know how you like them, minus any spoilers, because I am going to be reading these. So would love to hear from you, at least your thoughts on whether or not you enjoyed them, found them entertaining, or hated them too. Let me know. But that's it. Just wanted to pop on here and share my love of books with you guys and let you know what I was reading and hope that you'll let me know what you're reading. But until the next video, blessed be and happy Mother's Day.